More mitigating measures are continuously being thought of for motorists and commuters who have to endure the daily traffic woes in Metro Manila. One of these is the planned implementation of the BRT, or the Bus Rapid System. We have with us this week on Motoring Today's Motoring Forum, Valenzuela City Congressman Sherwin Gatchalian, who recently expressed his support for this novel scheme. Welcome to Motoring Today, Congressman Sherwin.
Thank you for inviting me, Butch.
Word is out that you are throwing your full support for the planned implementation of the BRT. Now, for the benefit of our viewers who may not know anything about the BRT, can you briefly explain what is its concept and how is it thought to mitigate the present woeful traffic situation and bring benefits to our commuters?
BRT stands for Bus Rapid Transit, and itong mga buses na ito are high-capacity buses. The present capacity right now is about 50 passengers per bus, but BRT, it can accommodate about 200 to 250 passengers per bus. Ang kaibahan lang nito, meron siyang dedicated lane, so the government has to build and allocate a dedicated lane for the BRTs. At the same time, it has also a dedicated terminal. So the government needs to build terminals in strategically located areas.
Tell us, is there already a pinpointed route for this proposed BRT project?
When I was a mayor, we talked to World Bank, and the World Bank financed the feasibility study of the BRT in Metro Manila. Ang na-identify nilang ruta ay yung C5. I think the entire stretch of C5 was identified for the Pioneer BRT program of Metro Manila. Unfortunately, wala pa rin nangyayari. I think the government has a different route in mind.
There is a similar BRT project being put up in Cebu City. Can you give us an update on this?
The BRT in Cebu City, as far as I know, is financed by World Bank, meaning the feasibility study is financed by World Bank. They've already identified the route of this Pioneer BRT in the Philippines, and World Bank will also look for funding to build the dedicated lanes.
We understand the Cebu BRT project is being put up with the help from funds from the World Bank. How about this one? Will there be foreign funding, or will it fall under President Aquino's PPP projects?
I know the feasibility study is funded by World Bank. It is not very clear if the dedicated lanes and the other infrastructure requirements will be funded by international lenders. I think that is a policy question that the government needs to address.
Now, do you expect any opposition for this concept? And if you do, from where and how do you intend to overcome such opposition?
I expect a lot of opposition. I remember when I was a mayor, the World Bank sponsored us to look at the BRT systems in Curitiba, Brazil, in Colombia, in LA. Curitiba was a pioneer of the BRT system. They're the ones who invented the BRT. And initially, when they launched the BRT system, they displaced a lot of the traditional modes of transportation, such as buses, minibuses, and the bigger buses. In Colombia, the same happened. In Bogota, they launched their BRT system, although it's not the entire city yet. I think a few routes pa lang. But they had to also displace the minibuses in their case. So in the Philippines, when you identify the route, most of the high-capacity routes have traditional modes of transportation, such as buses and jeepneys. So we expect a lot of opposition from the buses and jeepneys, and even tricycles in some cases. So we have to be ready to give them alternatives, and we have to be ready in coming out with a win-win situation for them.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Congressman. Before we end, would you have any final message to our viewers relevant to the proposed BRT project?
Well, definitely because of the traffic in Metro Manila, we need to invest in mass transit. There's no question that malayo pa tayo to the required mass transit capacity in the Philippines, specifically Metro Manila. So we need to invest in LRT and MRT systems. Unfortunately, these systems are very, very expensive. The BRT costs only 20% than the traditional light rail and heavy rail modes of transportation. So the BRT really is the way, to improve our mass transit systems. But that requires a lot of political will, a lot of planning, and definitely funding is also required. But naghahabol tayo, and I think the fastest way to execute a mass transit system in Metro Manila is through the BRT.
Thank you, Congressman Sherwin.
Thank you, Butch.
Valenzuela City Congressman Sherwin Gatchalian, our guest this week on Motoring Today's More Informed.